The advertisement had been folded and refolded so many times that the creases threatened to tear through the paper. But Penelope Vaughn still clutched it like a lifeline as she forced one bleeding foot in front of the other across the Nevada desert. She had left her shoes somewhere around mile 20, the worn leather finally splitting apart completely. And now the scorching sand felt like walking across hot coals while the sun beat down mercilessly on her shoulders through her tattered dress. The advertisement promised a good man seeking a wife, a rancher outside Ely, Nevada, who wanted nothing more than honest companionship and someone to share his life. And Penelope had nothing left to lose after her father's death left her penniless in Carson City, with a landlord demanding rent she could not pay. The year was 1884, and women in her position had few choices. She could work in a saloon, take in laundry for pennies, or answer an advertisement from a stranger and hope he turned out to be decent. Penelope had chosen the latter, spending her last few coins on a letter telling Mr. Wade Bishop that she would arrive in Ely by the 15th of July. What she had not counted on was the stagecoach line going bankrupt halfway through her journey, leaving her stranded in a nothing town called Silver Springs with no money and no way forward except her own 2 feet. That had been 3 days ago. 3 days of walking through heat that made her dizzy, rationing the small canteen of water she had begged from a kind woman at a trading post, sleeping under scrub brush when the sun went down and the desert cold set in. Her feet had blistered on the first day, bled on the second, and now on the third day she could barely feel them anymore, which she supposed was a mercy. The advertisement said Mr. Bishop's ranch was 5 miles outside of Ely, and according to the last sign she had passed, Ely was still 2 miles ahead. Penelope's vision swam as she crested another rise in the endless landscape. The town materialized like a mirage, small wooden buildings shimmering in the heat, and she nearly wept with relief. She could make it. She had to make it. The alternative was dying out here in the desert, and she had not walked 40 miles to give up now. Her feet left bloody prints in the dust as she stumbled down the main street of Ely. People stared, a few women gasping and whispering behind their hands, but Penelope barely registered them. She focused on putting one foot in front of the other, on the piece of paper in her hand that listed directions to the Bishop Ranch. North of town, 5 miles along the creek road, a wooden gate with a brand burned into it. Miss, are you all right? Penelope looked up to find an elderly man with kind eyes standing in front of her, his hand outstretched. She tried to answer, but her throat was too dry, her tongue thick in her mouth. Instead, she thrust the advertisement at him, pointing at the name with a trembling finger. The man's eyes widened as he read. "Wade Bishop, you have come to marry Wade Bishop," she nodded, swaying on her feet. "Lord have mercy, child. His ranch is still 5 miles from here. You cannot walk that far, not in your condition." He turned and called out, Thomas, get your wagon. We need to take this young lady out to the Bishop place right away." Penelope wanted to protest that she could walk, that she had already come so far, but her knees buckled and the old man caught her, easing her down to sit on the edge of the wooden sidewalk. Someone pressed a cup of water into her hands and she drank greedily, the cool liquid like heaven on her parched throat. "Easy now, not too fast," a woman's voice cautioned. "You will make yourself sick." A wagon pulled up and gentle hands helped her into the back. Penelope lay against the wooden boards, barely conscious as the wagon lurched into motion. The buildings of Ely fell away behind them, replaced once more by open desert and scattered vegetation. She drifted in and out of awareness, the sun scorching her face, her whole body aching with exhaustion. "There it is," the driver called back. "The Bishop Ranch." Penelope forced her eyes open and saw a wooden gate, just as the advertisement had described, with a brand burned into the crossbeam. Beyond it, a house stood sturdy and well built, with a barn and several outbuildings scattered across the property. Cattle grazed in distant pastures, and she could hear the welcome sound of running water from the creek the old man had mentioned. The wagon rolled to a stop in front of the house, and the driver climbed down, calling out, "Wade, Wade Bishop, you have a visitor." The front door opened and a man stepped out onto the porch. Penelope's breath caught despite her exhaustion. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders and strong arms revealed by his rolled-up shirt sleeves. His hair was dark brown, almost black and slightly too long, curling at his collar. But it was his eyes that held her attention, a striking blue-gray that seemed to take in everything at once as they landed on her in the back of the wagon. "What happened?" His voice was deep, concerned, and he was moving before the driver could answer, crossing the yard in long strides. "Is she hurt? She walked into town asking for you," the driver explained. "Says she has come to answer your advertisement. Looks like she has walked a long way too. Her feet are torn up something terrible." Wade Bishop reached the wagon and looked down at Penelope, and she saw his expression shift from concern to shock as he took in her condition, the bloody footprints she had left in the wagon bed, her sun-burned face and tattered dress. "You are Miss Vaughn?" he asked, and she recognized his voice from the single letter he had sent in response to hers, telling her he looked forward to meeting her. "Yes," she managed to whisper. "I am sorry. The stagecoach line collapsed and I had no money for another ticket. I had to walk. I promised I would be here by the 15th. Something flickered in his eyes, an emotion she could not quite read. Without another word, he reached into the wagon and lifted her out, cradling her against his chest as easily as if she weighed nothing at all. Penelope gasped at the sudden movement, instinctively clutching at his shoulders. "Thank you for bringing her, Mr. Carson," Wade said to the driver. "I appreciate your kindness. Of course, of course. I hope the young lady recovers quickly." The old man tipped his hat and climbed back onto his wagon, leaving them alone in the yard. Wade carried Penelope toward the house, and she felt the steady beat of his heart against her cheek where it rested against his chest. He smelled like leather and sage and honest work, and despite everything, she felt safe for the first time in weeks. He shouldered open the door and carried her inside to a simple but clean main room. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, with a sturdy table and chairs nearby. Doors led off to what she assumed were bedrooms and a kitchen. Wade carried her to a comfortable armchair near the fireplace and set her down gently. "Wait here," he said, and disappeared through one of the doors. Penelope sat trembling, taking in her surroundings. The house was clearly a bachelor's dwelling, lacking the small touches a woman would add, but it was well maintained and solidly built. Through the window, she could see the barn and the creek beyond, cottonwood trees providing shade along its banks. It was beautiful, peaceful, everything she had hoped for when she first read his advertisement. Wade returned carrying a basin of water, clean cloths, and what looked like medical supplies. He set everything down on a low table beside the chair, and then, to Penelope's surprise, he knelt before her. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to her feet. She nodded, too exhausted to be embarrassed, though color still rose to her cheeks. No man had ever tended to her this way. Wade lifted her right foot carefully, his large hands surprisingly gentle, and placed it in the basin of water. Penelope hissed at the sting, but the cool water also brought relief to her burning skin. "I am going to clean them as best I can," Wade said quietly, not looking up at her. "It is going to hurt. I am sorry." "It is all right," Penelope whispered. "I have endured worse these past few days." His jaw tightened, and he began to wash her foot with careful, deliberate movements. The water in the basin turned pink, then red. Penelope bit her lip to keep from crying out as he cleaned the cuts and blisters, removing embedded sand and debris. When he finished with one foot, he moved to the other, changing the water first, and repeated the process. "You walked 40 miles, he said, and it was not a question. 40 miles through the desert in July with no proper shoes." "I had shoes," Penelope said, trying to make light of it. "They simply did not survive the journey." Wade looked up at her then, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. "You could have died." "I know," she held his gaze, "but I made a promise. I told you I would be here by the 15th, and I keep my promises, Mr. Bishop." "Wade," he said, "please call me Wade." "Then you must call me Penelope." He nodded and returned his attention to her feet. Once they were clean, he applied a salve that stung at first but then soothed the raw skin. He wrapped them carefully in clean bandages, his movements practiced and sure. When he finished, he sat back on his heels and looked at her again. "You need food and rest," he said. "When did you last eat?" Penelope tried to remember. "Yesterday morning. A woman gave me half a biscuit." Wade's expression darkened. He stood and disappeared into the kitchen, and Penelope heard him moving around, the sound of a stove being stoked, dishes clinking. She leaned her head back against the chair, suddenly overwhelmed by everything that had happened. She was here. She had made it. Against all odds, she had walked 40 miles through the desert, and she was here in Wade Bishop's house, her feet bandaged by his own hands. Tears leaked from the corners of her eyes, and she let them fall, too tired to hold them back. She had been so strong for so long, ever since her father's death, ever since she realized she had nothing and no one left in the world. The relief of finally being somewhere safe, of having someone care for her injuries, broke through the wall she had built around herself. Wade returned carrying a plate with bread, cheese, and cold meat, along with a glass of milk. He stopped when he saw her tears, his expression softening. "Hey now," he said gently, setting the plate down and kneeling beside her chair again. "You are safe here. You are going to be all right." "I know," Penelope said, wiping at her eyes. "I think that is why I am crying. I have not been safe in such a long time." Something in Wade's expression shifted, and he reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. When she did not, he brushed a tear from her cheek with his thumb, his touch feather light. "Eat," he said softly. "Then you need to sleep. We can talk about everything else later." Penelope ate slowly, forcing herself not to wolf down the food even though she was starving. Wade sat nearby, watching her with an expression she could not quite read. Concern, certainly, but something else too. Something warmer. When she finished eating, Wade showed her to a small bedroom off the main room. The bed was neatly made with a simple quilt, and late afternoon sunlight streamed through the window. "This will be your room," Wade said. "I am just across the hall if you need anything. Rest as long as you need." Penelope wanted to say something, to thank him properly, but exhaustion was pulling her under like a tide. She managed a weak "thank you" before Wade withdrew, closing the door softly behind him. She barely managed to remove her tattered dress before collapsing onto the bed. The sheets were clean and smelled like sunshine, and within moments Penelope was asleep. When she woke, the room was dark except for a sliver of moonlight through the window. Penelope lay still for a moment, disoriented before memory returned. The ranch. Wade. Her bandaged feet throbbed with a dull ache, but it was nothing compared to the agony of the past few days. She heard movement in the main room and carefully sat up, wrapping herself in a blanket since she was only in her thin chemise. When she opened the door, she found Wade sitting at the table, papers spread before him in the light of an oil lamp. He looked up at her entrance, concern immediate on his face. "Are you all right?" Do you need something? I woke up and did not know where I was for a moment, Penelope admitted. What time is it? Near midnight. I am sorry if I woke you. You did not. She moved carefully into the room, her wrapped feet making her steps awkward. What are you working on? Ranch accounts. Exciting work, he said with a slight smile. Please sit. Can I get you anything? Water. More food. Penelope settled into a chair across from him, tucking the blanket more securely around herself. Water would be wonderful, thank you. Wade poured her a glass from a pitcher on the table and watched as she drank. In the lamplight, his features were softer, the harsh lines of his face gentled by shadow. I suppose we should talk, Penelope said when she set down the glass. About why I am here, about your advertisement. Wade leaned back in his chair, studying her. I suppose we should. Though I confess, after watching you walk 40 miles to get here, I am more interested in knowing about you than discussing the practical arrangements. What would you like to know? Everything, he said simply. Start with why a woman like you needed to answer an advertisement from a stranger. Penelope took a breath and began to tell him. About her father, a clerk who had worked his whole life but never managed to save much. About his sudden death from pneumonia 6 months ago, leaving her alone with nothing but debts. About the landlord who had given her a week to come up with 3 months back rent or be thrown out on the street. About the limited options available to a woman with no family and no money. I could have gone to work in a saloon, she said quietly. Or taken in laundry for pennies a day while slowly starving. Or I could answer an advertisement from a man who sounded decent and kind in his words and hope for something better. So I chose hope. Wade was quiet for a long moment. My advertisement said I wanted a wife to help run the ranch, someone to share my life. It did not say much about me as a person. It said enough, Penelope replied. You wrote that you valued honesty, hard work, and kindness above all else. That you had built your ranch with your own hands over the past 8 years and wanted someone to build a future with. That spoke well of your character. 8 years is a long time to be alone, Wade said. I came out here when I was 19, bought this land for almost nothing because nobody else wanted it. Spent years building it into something worthwhile. I am 27 now, and I realized I had been so focused on surviving and building that I had forgotten to actually live. This ranch is beautiful, but it is lonely with just one person. Why did you not court someone in town? Penelope asked. Wade's expression turned wry. Ely is not a large place, and the few unmarried women there are either much too young or already spoken for. I thought about it for months before placing that advertisement, worried about what kind of woman would answer it, whether we would suit each other at all. Then your letter arrived, and something about the way you wrote, the honesty in your words, made me think perhaps we might get along. I tried to be truthful about my situation, Penelope said. I did not want to deceive you. And I appreciate that, though I wish you had told me about the stagecoach line collapsing. I would have sent money for another ticket or come to get you myself. I had no way to contact you quickly enough, and I was afraid if I sent a letter explaining the situation, you would think I was making excuses or trying to get money from you without following through. Penelope looked down at her hands. I have some pride left, even if I have nothing else. You have a great deal more than pride, Wade said firmly. You have courage and determination and strength. Walking 40 miles through the desert proves that. Warmth bloomed in Penelope's chest at his words. Thank you. That means a great deal to me. They talked through the night, the conversation flowing easily between them. Wade told her about the ranch, about the cattle he raised and the challenges of making a living from the land. Penelope told him about her childhood, about her love of books and how her father had taught her to read when she was very young. They discovered they were both early risers, Both preferred coffee to tea. Both found peace in watching the sunrise. As dawn began to paint the eastern sky pink and gold, Wade finally pushed back from the table and stretched. "I should let you rest more," he said. "And I need to tend to the animals." "I want to help," Penelope said immediately. Wade raised an eyebrow. "Your feet need time to heal. You should stay off them for at least a few days." "I did not come here to be a burden," Penelope protested. "I can still be useful even sitting down. Surely there is mending or cooking or something I can do." A smile tugged at Wade's lips. "You are stubborn, are not you?" "I prefer to think of it as determined." "All right then. There is a basket of mending that has been sitting neglected for months. If you are feeling up to it, you can work on that while I handle the morning chores. But you stay off those feet." "Understood." "Understood," Penelope agreed. The next few days fell into a comfortable rhythm. Penelope's feet healed slowly, and Wade changed her bandages each evening with the same gentle care he had shown that first day. She did mending and cooking, working from chairs that Wade would move to wherever she needed to be. He taught her about the ranch, about which cattle were ready to sell and which needed more time to fatten up, about the challenges of water rights and predators, and the sometimes harsh Nevada weather. They talked constantly, learning each other's quirks and preferences. Penelope discovered that Wade had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard and made her laugh. Wade learned that Penelope could not sing to save her life, but hummed constantly while she worked anyway. They debated books they had both read, argued good-naturedly about the best way to make biscuits, and shared stories about their pasts. On the fifth evening, as Wade finished wrapping her feet, Penelope finally worked up the courage to ask the question that had been weighing on her mind. "Wade, we have not actually discussed the arrangement, what you expect from this marriage." His hands stilled on her feet and he looked up at her. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I came here to answer your advertisement. We have not talked about when we might actually marry, or what kind of marriage it would be." She felt her cheeks heat, but forced herself to continue. "Some arrangements like this are marriages in name only, practical partnerships. Others are expected to be real in every sense." "I need to know what you are expecting." Wade was quiet for a long moment, his expression serious. Then he sat back and met her eyes directly. "I will be honest with you, Penelope. When I placed that advertisement, I was looking for a partner, someone to help run this ranch and share my life. I hoped we might become friends at least, and perhaps more over time if we suited each other. But I never expected to feel the way I do after only 5 days." Penelope's heart began to race. "What do you mean?" "I mean that I find myself thinking about you constantly. Looking forward to our conversations more than anything else in my day. Wanting to hear your laugh, see your smile. I am drawn to you in a way I did not anticipate and honestly did not think was possible with someone I barely know." He ran a hand through his hair, looking suddenly uncertain. "I realize that might be unwelcome news. You came here out of necessity, not because you wanted to, and I do not want to make you uncomfortable or pressure you in any way." "It is not unwelcome," Penelope said softly. Wade looked up sharply, hope flaring in his eyes, and she continued, "I feel the same way. I did not expect it either, but I find myself caring for you already. The way you took care of me that first day, the gentleness and kindness you have shown me, the way you listen when I talk and seem genuinely interested in what I think and feel. I have never met anyone like you, Wade." A slow smile spread across Wade's face, transforming his features from merely handsome to breathtaking. "So what do we do about it?" "I suppose we could court properly, even though the situation is a bit backwards," Penelope suggested. "Get to know each other better before making any permanent decisions." "I would like that," Wade agreed. Though I should warn you, I am already fairly certain about my feelings. As am I, Penelope admitted, but perhaps we should give it a bit more time anyway. Make sure this is real and not just the circumstances bringing us together. That seems wise. Wade stood and offered her his hand. In that case, Miss Vaughn, would you do me the honor of allowing me to court you properly? Penelope placed her hand in his, feeling the warmth and strength of his grip. I would be delighted, Mr. Bishop. Over the next few weeks, Wade courted Penelope with a sweetness that made her heart ache. He picked wildflowers and left them on her pillow. He took her on gentle walks around the property once her feet had healed enough, showing her every corner of the land he loved. He cooked her favorite meals and read aloud to her in the evenings, his deep voice bringing the words to life. Penelope fell more in love with him with each passing day. She loved the way he talked to his horses, gentle and patient. She loved how he always made sure she had the comfortable chair by the fire. She loved his laugh, rare but genuine, and the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled. She loved his hands, calloused and strong but so gentle when they touched her. One evening, about 3 weeks after her arrival, they sat together on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. Wade had his arm around her shoulders and Penelope was tucked against his side, perfectly content. I need to go into town tomorrow, Wade said. There are supplies I need to pick up, and I want to talk to the blacksmith about some repairs. Would you like to come with me? I would love to, Penelope said. I have barely seen Ely since I arrived in such a state. I imagine people will be curious about you, Wade warned. Small towns love gossip, and a woman walking 40 miles barefoot is exactly the kind of story people will talk about. Let them talk, Penelope said. I am not ashamed of what I did. Wade pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Nor should you be. You are the bravest person I have ever met. The next morning, they rode into town together on Wade's wagon, Penelope wearing a dress that Wade had purchased from a catalog specifically for her. It was simple but well made, a soft blue that Wade said matched her eyes. She had protested the expense, but he had insisted, and secretly she was pleased to have something nice to wear. Ely was busier than she remembered from her brief glimpse that first day. The main street was lined with shops and businesses, and people moved about their daily routines. As Wade had predicted, their arrival drew attention. People stared and whispered, and Penelope held her head high, refusing to show any embarrassment. Wade kept a protective hand at the small of her back as they walked from the general store to the blacksmith, and then to the bank. Several people approached them, curiosity clear on their faces, and Wade introduced Penelope politely but firmly as his intended bride. At the general store, they encountered a woman about Penelope's age with kind eyes and a warm smile. You must be Miss Vaughn, the woman said. I am Sarah Collins. My father was the one who drove you out to Wade's ranch that first day. Mrs. Collins, Penelope said, recognizing the name, thank you so much for what your father did. I do not know what would have happened if he had not helped me. Please call me Sarah. And you are very welcome. Father was quite worried about you. She glanced at Wade and then back to Penelope, lowering her voice conspiratorially. The whole town has been dying to know how you are doing. You caused quite a stir. I am doing well thanks to Wade's care, Penelope said. I can see that, Sarah said with a knowing smile. You both look very happy. Listen, I know you are new here and probably do not know many people yet. Would you like to come to a quilting circle on Thursday? It is just a few of us women from town getting together to sew and talk. It would be a good chance to meet some people. Penelope glanced at Wade, who nodded encouragingly. I would like that very much, thank you. Wonderful. It is at the church at 2 o'clock. I will see you then. Sarah waved goodbye and continued her shopping. "She seems nice," Penelope said as they left the store. "The Collins family are good people," Wade agreed. "Sarah's husband runs the livery stable. You will like her." They were loading supplies into the wagon when a man approached, tall and lean with a sheriff's badge pinned to his vest. "Wade," the man said with a nod. "Miss Vaughn." "Sheriff Turner," Wade replied, his tone polite but slightly cool. "What can I do for you?" "Just wanted to welcome Miss Vaughn to town officially," the sheriff said, though his eyes were sharp as they studied Penelope. "Make sure everything is all right out at your place." "Everything is fine," Wade said firmly. "Miss Vaughn is here of her own free will, answering my advertisement for a bride. We are courting properly before we marry." "I see." The sheriff's gaze lingered on Penelope. "That is quite a story about how you got here, miss. Walking 40 miles barefoot through the desert. Some folks are wondering if maybe you were running from something." Penelope felt Wade tense beside her, but she spoke before he could. "I was not running from anything except poverty, Sheriff. My father died and left me with nothing. I answered Mr. Bishop's advertisement honestly and did my best to get here when I said I would. If people want to gossip about that, I cannot stop them, but I have nothing to hide." The sheriff studied her for a moment longer, then nodded. "Fair enough. Welcome to Ely, Miss Vaughn." He tipped his hat and walked away. "Interfering busybody," Wade muttered once the sheriff was out of earshot. "He has always been too interested in other people's business." "He is just doing his job," Penelope said, though she had not particularly liked the suspicion in the sheriff's eyes. "Making sure I am not being held against my will or something." "You are not, are you?" Wade asked with a slight smile. Penelope laughed. "Definitely not. Though you have made it very difficult to ever want to leave." Wade's expression softened, and he leaned down to brush a kiss across her forehead, not caring that they were in the middle of town. "Good, because I do not ever want you to." They finished their errands and headed back to the ranch. On Thursday, Wade drove Penelope back to town for the quilting circle. She was nervous about meeting more people, but Sarah's warm welcome put her at ease immediately. The quilting circle consisted of 6 women ranging from their 20s to their 60s. They welcomed Penelope kindly, asking questions about her journey and her plans with Wade. Penelope answered honestly, and she was relieved when the women seemed more impressed than judgmental about her 40-mile walk. "That is devotion," an older woman named Martha said approvingly. "A man would be lucky to have a woman willing to do that for him." "Wade is a good man," another woman, Ruth, added. "He has worked hard to build that ranch. He deserves someone who will appreciate what he has accomplished." "I do appreciate it," Penelope said quietly. "And I appreciate him. He has been nothing but kind to me since I arrived." "We can see that," Sarah said with a smile. "You are both glowing whenever you are together. It is sweet." The afternoon passed pleasantly, and Penelope found herself relaxing in the company of other women for the first time in months. They taught her about life in Ely, about which merchants were honest and which to avoid, about the social events and church services that marked the calendar. When Wade picked her up that evening, Penelope was smiling. "You had a good time?" he asked as they drove home. "I did." They were all very kind, and it was nice to have female companionship again. "I have missed that." She leaned against his shoulder. "Though I was glad when it was time to come home to you." Wade's arm came around her, pulling her closer. "Home," he repeated softly. "I like the sound of that. This being your home." "So do I," Penelope admitted. That night after dinner, Wade seemed nervous. He kept starting to say something and then stopping until finally Penelope put down her mending and looked at him directly. "What is it? Just say whatever you are trying to say." Wade took a deep breath. "We have been courting for nearly a month now. I know we said we would take our time, make sure this was real and not just circumstances bringing us together. But Penelope, I am sure. I am completely sure about my feelings for you. I love you. I think I started falling in love with you the moment I lifted you out of that wagon and saw how brave and determined you were. Every day since has only made me more certain. Penelope's breath caught in her throat. Wade, I know it is fast, he continued. I know we have not known each other long, but when you know, you know. And I know that I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep beside you every night. I want to build this ranch with you, build a family with you, build a life with you. He stood and crossed to her, kneeling beside her chair and taking her hands in his. Penelope Vaughn, will you marry me? Not because of an advertisement or out of necessity, but because we love each other and want to spend our lives together. Tears spilled down Penelope's cheeks, but she was smiling. Yes. Yes, Wade, I will marry you. I love you too. I think I fell in love with you when you knelt in front of me and washed my bloody feet with such gentleness. You made me feel cared for and valued in a way I never had before. Every day since has shown me what an amazing man you are, and I cannot imagine my life without you now. Wade surged up and kissed her, and it was everything their first kiss should be. Tender and passionate, sweet and intense, full of promise for their future together. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. How soon can we marry? Wade asked. I do not want to wait. Neither do I, Penelope said. But we should do it properly. Talk to the minister, post the banns, give people time to prepare. A few weeks, perhaps, Wade groaned. That seems like forever. It will go quickly, Penelope promised, and it will be worth the wait. They married on a clear Saturday morning in late August, in the small church in Ely with what seemed like the entire town in attendance. Penelope wore a white dress that the women from the quilting circle had helped her make, and she carried wildflowers that Wade had picked that morning. Wade wore his best suit, cleaned and pressed, and could not stop smiling. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife and Wade kissed her, Penelope felt like her heart might burst from happiness. This man, this wonderful, gentle, strong man was hers. And she was his. After everything she had been through, all the hardship and loss, she had found something truly precious. The reception was held in the church hall, with food provided by the townspeople and music from a local fiddler. Penelope danced with Wade, laughing as he spun her around, his eyes never leaving her face. Have I told you how beautiful you look today? He murmured in her ear. Only about 10 times, Penelope said, smiling, but I do not mind hearing it again. You are beautiful. The most beautiful woman I have ever seen, and you are mine. The possessiveness in his voice sent a shiver through her. And you are mine, she replied. I love you, Wade Bishop. I love you too, Penelope Bishop. Her new name sent a thrill through her. She was Penelope Bishop now, wife to Wade, partner in the ranch and in life. It was more than she had ever hoped for when she answered that advertisement. As the sun began to set, they said their goodbyes and drove back to the ranch together. The house looked warm and welcoming in the fading light, and Penelope felt a rush of contentment. This was home now. Truly home. Wade carried her over the threshold, both of them laughing, and set her down gently in the main room. Then his expression turned serious and he cupped her face in his hands. Are you happy? He asked softly. Happier than I have ever been, Penelope assured him. Are you? Beyond measure. He kissed her gently, then more deeply, and Penelope melted against him. I promise I will spend every day trying to make you happy, trying to be worthy of what you did to get here. You already are, Penelope whispered. You already are. Their wedding night was tender and sweet, both of them nervous but eager, learning each other in new and intimate ways. Wade was patient and gentle, making sure Penelope felt cherished and desired. Afterwards, they lay tangled together in the bed, Penelope's head on Wade's chest, his arms around her. "No regrets?" Wade asked quietly. "Not a single one," Penelope replied. "You?" "Only that I did not place that advertisement sooner." Penelope laughed and pressed a kiss to his chest. "We found each other when we were meant to. That is all that matters." The first year of their marriage was full of joy and hard work in equal measure. Penelope threw herself into helping Wade run the ranch, learning about cattle and horses and crops. She proved to have a natural talent for managing the finances, keeping detailed records that helped them make smart decisions about when to buy and sell. The ranch prospered under their joint management. Wade expanded the herd and repaired the barn, making it more efficient. Penelope started a vegetable garden that provided fresh food and some extra income when she sold the surplus in town. They worked hard from dawn to dusk, but they also made time for each other, for long talks on the porch and stolen kisses in the barn. The women of Ely embraced Penelope fully, including her in their quilting circles and church activities. She formed close friendships, particularly with Sarah Collins, and began to feel like she truly belonged in the community. The story of how she walked 40 miles barefoot became legendary, told and retold until it took on mythical proportions. Some versions had her walking through a sandstorm. Others claimed she fought off wild animals. Penelope found it amusing and slightly embarrassing, but Wade was proud of her and did not mind people knowing what she had endured. In the spring of 1885, Penelope discovered she was pregnant. She told Wade one evening after dinner, watching nervously for his reaction. His face lit up with pure joy, and he lifted her off her feet and spun her around, both of them laughing. "We are going to have a baby," he kept saying, wonder in his voice. "We are going to be parents. Are you happy?" Penelope asked, though the answer was obvious. "I am beyond happy. I am overjoyed, blessed, amazed." He set her down carefully as if she had suddenly become fragile. "Are you feeling all right? Do you need anything? Should you be resting?" Penelope laughed at his sudden concern. "I am fine. Women have been having babies since the beginning of time. I am not going to break." But Wade fussed over her anyway, insisting she not overwork herself, making sure she ate properly and rested enough. Penelope found it endearing even when it became a bit much. She had never had anyone care for her so completely, and she loved him even more for it. As her belly grew round with their child, Wade would talk to the baby every night, his hand on her stomach, telling stories about the ranch and how much he was looking forward to meeting them. Penelope would stroke his hair and feel overwhelmed with love for this man who had taken her in when she had nothing and given her everything. Their son was born on a cold December morning in 1885. The birth was long and difficult, attended by the town doctor and Sarah Collins, who had come to help. Wade paced outside the bedroom door, going mad with worry every time Penelope cried out. But finally, the baby's wail filled the house, and the doctor called him in. Penelope lay exhausted in the bed, her hair damp with sweat, but she was smiling as she held a tiny bundle wrapped in blankets. Wade approached slowly, almost afraid, and looked down at his son for the first time. "He is perfect," Wade whispered, reaching out to touch the baby's tiny hand. Small fingers wrapped around his, and Wade's eyes filled with tears. "He is absolutely perfect. Would you like to hold him?" Penelope asked. Wade took the baby carefully, cradling him against his chest. The infant's eyes were closed, his face red and wrinkled, and Wade thought he had never seen anything more beautiful. "What should we name him?" he asked. They had discussed names for months but had never quite decided. Now, looking at their son, Penelope said, "What about William? After my father, he would have loved to meet his grandson." "William Bishop," Wade said, testing the name. "I like it. William Wade Bishop. Perfect, Penelope agreed. William was a healthy, lusty baby who kept them busy day and night. But neither Penelope nor Wade minded. They took turns walking him when he fussed, changing his diapers, marveling over every little thing he did. Wade proved to be a devoted father, patient and gentle with his son, and watching him with William made Penelope fall in love with him all over again. The ranch continued to prosper as William grew. By the time he was 2, Penelope was pregnant again. Their daughter, Patricia, was born in the summer of 1888, an easier birth than her brother's had been. She had Penelope's blonde hair and Wade's blue-gray eyes, and both her parents adored her instantly. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. The children grew healthy and happy, running around the ranch and learning about the cattle and horses. William was serious and thoughtful like his father, while Patricia was more adventurous, always getting into things and keeping Penelope on her toes. One evening in the summer of 1890, Penelope and Wade sat on the porch watching the sunset as they had done countless times before. William, now 4, was trying to catch grasshoppers in the yard, while 2-year-old Patricia toddled after him. Inside the house, a baby boy named Thomas slept peacefully, their 3rd child born just 2 months earlier. "You remember the first time we sat here together?" Wade asked, his arm around Penelope's shoulders. "Of course," Penelope said. "It was about 3 weeks after I arrived. You told me you needed to go into town, and I said I wanted to come with you." "I knew then that I was falling in love with you," Wade admitted. "Sitting here with you felt so natural, so right, like you had always belonged here." "I felt the same way," Penelope said. "I remember thinking that I had made the right choice in answering your advertisement, that maybe, somehow, things were going to work out after all." Wade turned to look at her, his expression serious. "You ever regret it, walking 40 miles through the desert? Everything you went through to get here?" Penelope considered the question, even though she already knew the answer. She thought about the pain and fear of that journey, the blistered feet and burning sun, and moments when she had truly believed she might die out there in the desert. Then she looked at her children playing in the yard, at the house she had made into a home, at the man beside her who loved her more than she had ever thought possible. "Not for a single second," she said firmly. "Every step of that journey led me here, to you, to this life. I would walk 40 miles barefoot again in a heartbeat if that was what it took." Wade pulled her closer and kissed her temple. "I love you, Penelope Bishop, more than words can express." "I love you too," Penelope said, "more than I ever thought it was possible to love someone." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun sank lower, painting the sky in brilliant colors. William caught a grasshopper and ran to show them, his face alight with pride. Patricia clapped her hands and tried to touch it. Inside, Thomas began to fuss, and Penelope rose to tend to him. As she walked into the house, she paused to look back at Wade, who was now on the ground with William, examining the grasshopper while Patricia climbed on his back. Her heart swelled with love and gratitude. 6 years ago, she had been desperate and alone, with nothing but a newspaper advertisement and a prayer. Now she had a husband who adored her, 3 beautiful children, and a home where she was loved and valued. Sometimes, late at night when she could not sleep, Penelope would think about that journey through the desert. She would remember the pain and exhaustion, the moments when she had wanted to give up but forced herself to keep going. And she would think about Wade kneeling before her, washing her bloody feet with such tenderness, carrying her inside like she was something precious. That memory never failed to make her smile. The years continued to pass peacefully. The ranch grew more prosperous, and Wade's reputation as a fair and honest rancher spread throughout the region. Penelope became known for her sharp mind and head for business, and other ranchers' wives would sometimes come to her for advice on managing their finances. William grew into a responsible young boy who loved working with his father on the ranch. Patricia was as wild and free as the wind, always climbing trees and getting into mischief, but with a kind heart that endeared her to everyone. Thomas was still too young to be much besides adorable, but he showed signs of being as stubborn as his mother and as patient as his father. In 1892, Penelope gave birth to twin girls, much to everyone's surprise. Clara and Catherine were identical, with dark hair and mischievous smiles, and they kept the entire household in delighted chaos. Wade expanded the house, adding more bedrooms and a larger kitchen to accommodate their growing family. 5 children, Wade said one night as they got ready for bed, shaking his head in amazement. When I placed that advertisement, I never imagined all of this. Having regrets, Penelope teased. Never, Wade said firmly. He pulled her into his arms, even though her body was rounder now, marked by childbirth and the years. To him, she was even more beautiful than the day she had arrived at his ranch, bleeding and exhausted but unbowed. You have given me everything I ever wanted and things I did not even know I wanted. A home full of love and laughter. Children who make every day an adventure. A partner who challenges me and supports me in equal measure. You have given me the same, Penelope said. When I walked those 40 miles, I was just hoping for survival, for a chance at a better life. You gave me so much more than that. You gave me love, a family, a home. You gave me a reason to be grateful I survived. Wade kissed her then, slow and deep, and Penelope felt the familiar spark of desire that had never dimmed between them. They made love quietly, aware that children could wake at any moment, but no less passionate for the need for silence. Afterward, lying in Wade's arms, Penelope felt completely at peace. This was her life now. This man, these children, this ranch. It was everything she had never dared to hope for, all because she had been brave enough to walk 40 miles barefoot through the desert to answer an advertisement. "What are you thinking about?" Wade asked softly, running his fingers through her hair. "About how lucky I am," Penelope said. "About how much I love you, about how I would do it all again in a heartbeat. The walking 40 miles part, that and everything else. Every hardship, every struggle, if it meant I ended up here with you." Wade tightened his arms around her. "I am the lucky one. You are the bravest, strongest, most amazing woman I have ever known. You walked 40 miles barefoot to take a chance on a stranger, and you have made every single day since brighter than I could have imagined." They fell asleep tangled together, as they had every night since their wedding. And in the morning, they woke to the sound of children laughing and playing, ready to face another day together on the ranch they had built with their own hands and their shared love. The children grew, each developing their own personality and dreams. William announced at age 12 that he wanted to expand the ranch one day, maybe raise horses in addition to cattle. Patricia declared she wanted to be a school teacher and traveled to Carson City at 18 to attend a teaching college, something that made Penelope incredibly proud. Thomas showed an interest in mechanics and engineering, always taking things apart to see how they worked. The twins, Clara and Catherine, were inseparable and had big dreams of opening a dress shop together one day. Wade and Penelope supported all of their children's ambitions while also teaching them the value of hard work and honesty. They ran the ranch together, true partners in every sense, making decisions jointly and respecting each other's opinions. In 1905, William married a sweet girl named Anne from a neighboring ranch, and they built a house on the far side of the Bishop property. A year later, They made Wade and Penelope grandparents for the first time with the birth of a baby girl they named Penelope after her grandmother. "We are getting old," Wade said with a laugh as he held his granddaughter for the first time. "Speak for yourself," Penelope retorted, though she was 53 now, her blonde hair streaked with silver. "I feel as young as I did the day I walked 40 miles to get here." "I doubt that," Wade said, but he was smiling. At 51, he had a few more lines on his face and his hair was graying, but he was still strong and vital. "Though you are still just as beautiful." "Flatterer," Penelope said, but she leaned in to kiss him anyway. Little Penelope was the first of many grandchildren. Over the next decade, William and Anne had 4 more children. Patricia married a fellow teacher and had 3 children of her own. Thomas became a mechanic in Ely and married a banker's daughter, starting a family there. The twins opened their dress shop in Carson City, and both eventually married, though they stayed business partners and neighbors. The ranch continued to thrive under William's management, as Wade slowly handed over more responsibilities to his eldest son. Wade and Penelope spent more time simply enjoying life, taking walks around the property, sitting on the porch in the evenings, and spoiling their grandchildren whenever they visited. On a warm evening in the summer of 1920, 36 years after Penelope's arrival, she and Wade sat on their porch watching the sunset as they had done thousands of times before. They were both in their late 60s now, moving a bit slower, but still healthy and active. Their children and grandchildren had gathered at the ranch for a big family reunion, and the sound of laughter and conversation drifted from the house behind them. "Quite a legacy we have built," Wade said, gesturing to the bustling house full of family. "We certainly have," Penelope agreed. She looked at him, this man she had loved for more than half her life, and felt the same flutter in her heart that she had felt the first time he smiled at her. "You ever think about that day I arrived, how I must have looked, stumbling into town with bloody feet?" "I think about it often," Wade said. "I think about how terrified I was that you would die before I could get you help. How amazed I was by your courage and determination. How I fell in love with you almost immediately, even though I tried to tell myself it was too fast, too soon." "I fell in love with you when you knelt down and washed my feet," Penelope said. "That moment when I realized you saw me as a person, not just a desperate woman answering an advertisement. When you treated me with such gentleness and care, even though I was a stranger. That was when I knew I had made the right choice in coming here." Wade reached over and took her hand, his thumb tracing patterns on her palm. "You saved me, you know. I was so lonely before you came. I had built this ranch, accomplished everything I set out to do, but it all felt empty without someone to share it with. You brought life and love and laughter into this place. You made it a home." "We made it a home," Penelope corrected. "Together. That is what we have always been. Partners. A team." "The best team," Wade agreed. He leaned over and kissed her soft and sweet. After all these years, kissing her still made his heart race. Inside, someone started playing the piano and the sound of singing floated out to them. Penelope recognized the voice of one of their grandchildren, probably little Sarah, William's youngest. She had a beautiful voice. "We should go in," Penelope said reluctantly. "Join the family." "In a minute," Wade said. "Let me just sit here with you for a bit longer. Just the 2 of us, like it was in the beginning." Penelope settled back against him, and they watched as the sun sank lower, painting the Nevada sky in brilliant shades of orange and red and purple. The land stretched out before them, the ranch they had built together, the life they had created from nothing but hope and love and determination. "I love you," Wade said quietly. "I have loved you from the moment you clutched that advertisement in your bleeding hands and told me you had walked 40 miles because you made a promise. And I will love you until the day I die and beyond." "I love you too," Penelope said, tears gathering in her eyes. "You took a broken, desperate woman and showed her what it meant to be truly loved. You gave me a life I never thought possible. You gave me everything." "You gave me everything," Wade countered. "You gave me yourself, which was the greatest gift I could ever receive." They sat together as the stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Two people who had found each other against all odds and built something beautiful together. Inside, their family laughed and sang and celebrated, a testament to the love that Wade and Penelope shared. As the years continued to pass, Wade and Penelope grew older gracefully, surrounded by the love of their children and grandchildren and eventually great-grandchildren. They never forgot that first day when Penelope arrived broken and bleeding, and Wade carried her inside and washed her feet with such tenderness. It became the foundation story of their family, told and retold to each new generation. "Great-grandmother really walked 40 miles barefoot through the desert?" a great-grandson asked one day, his eyes wide with awe. "She did," Wade confirmed, his arm around Penelope as they sat together on the porch. "She was the bravest person I ever met." "I was desperate," Penelope corrected gently. "Desperate and stubborn and perhaps a bit foolish, but I wanted a chance at something better and I was willing to fight for it." "And you got it," the boy said. "You got great-grandfather and the ranch and all of us." "I did," Penelope agreed, squeezing Wade's hand. "I got everything I ever dreamed of and more." In the spring of 1932, Wade fell ill. The doctor said it was his heart, weakened with age, and there was little they could do. Penelope nursed him devotedly, never leaving his side, holding his hand through the long nights as his breathing grew more labored. "I am not ready to leave you," Wade whispered one night, his voice weak. "Then do not," Penelope said fiercely, though she knew it was futile. "Stay with me. We have more years ahead of us." "I want to," Wade said. "I want nothing more than to sit on our porch with you every evening until we are both 100 years old, but I do not think I get a choice in this." Tears streamed down Penelope's face. "I cannot lose you. You are everything to me." "And you are everything to me," Wade said. He lifted his hand, shaking with effort, and touched her face. "You have been my whole world for 48 years, the best years of my life. I do not regret a single moment." "Neither do I," Penelope whispered. "Promise me something," Wade said. "Promise me you will be all right, that you will let our children and grandchildren take care of you, that you will not shut yourself away grieving but will keep living, keep enjoying the life we built together." "Wade." "Promise me, Penelope. I need to know you will be all right." "I promise," she said through her tears. "I promise I will be all right, but I do not want to be without you." "I will always be with you," Wade said. "Every sunset we watched together, every laugh we shared, every kiss, every touch, every moment of love, all of that is still yours. I am still yours, even when I am gone." He died that night peacefully with Penelope holding his hand and their children gathered around them. His last words were, "I love you," and Penelope felt a piece of her heart break away and go with him. The funeral was attended by what seemed like half of Nevada. Wade had been respected and loved in the community, and people came from far and wide to pay their respects. Penelope stood dry-eyed through the service, her children supporting her on either side. She did not cry until they lowered him into the ground, and then the tears came in a flood, 48 years of love and memories pouring out of her. The days after were hard. The house felt empty without Wade, even though it was constantly full of children and grandchildren who came to check on her. Penelope would find herself turning to tell him something, only to remember he was not there. She would wake in the night reaching for him, finding only empty space. But she had promised Wade she would be all right, and Penelope kept her promises. She allowed herself to grieve, but she also forced herself to keep living. She spent time with her grandchildren and great-grandchildren, telling them stories about their grandfather and great-grandfather. She helped William with the ranch finances, her mind still sharp even at 70. She attended quilting circles and church services, maintaining the friendships she had built over decades. And every evening, without fail, she sat on the porch and watched the sunset, remembering all the times she and Wade had done the same. She would talk to him sometimes, telling him about her day, about what the children were doing, about how much she missed him. And sometimes, when the light was just right and the wind blew gentle across the desert, she could almost feel him there beside her. Penelope lived for another 8 years without Wade, years filled with both sorrow and joy. She saw more grandchildren marry and more great-grandchildren born. She celebrated her 78th birthday surrounded by 4 generations of family, all of them descendants of that desperate young woman who had walked 40 miles through the desert and the cowboy who had washed her feet. In the summer of 1940, on an evening much like the one 56 years earlier when she had first arrived, Penelope sat on the porch watching the sunset one last time. Her great-granddaughter Sarah, named after the friend Penelope had made in her early days in Ely, sat beside her. "Are you feeling all right, great-grandmother?" Sarah asked, concerned by how tired Penelope looked. "I am feeling wonderful," Penelope said truthfully. "I am thinking about your great-grandfather, about how much I loved him and how lucky I was to have 48 years with him." "You still miss him," Sarah said softly. "Every single day," Penelope confirmed. "But I also know I will see him again soon, and what a reunion that will be." "Great-grandmother, do not talk like that. You are going to be with us for years yet." Penelope smiled and patted the girl's hand. "Perhaps. Or perhaps I have lived long enough, seen enough, loved enough. Do not be sad for me, sweet girl. I have had the most wonderful life. I have been blessed beyond measure." That night, Penelope went to bed and slipped away peacefully in her sleep. The family grieved, but they also celebrated a life well lived, a love that had endured for decades, a legacy that would continue for generations. They buried her beside Wade under a cottonwood tree on the ranch they had built together. The headstone reads simply, "Penelope Bishop, 1862-1940. Beloved wife, mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother. She walked 40 miles for love and found everything she was searching for." The ranch continued under William's care and eventually passed to his children. The story of how Penelope walked 40 miles barefoot through the desert became a cherished family legend, told to each new generation as an example of courage, determination, and the power of love. And on warm summer evenings, when the family gathered on the porch to watch the sunset, they swore they could sometimes feel the presence of Wade and Penelope there with them, sitting together as they had done for so many years, still in love, still together, still partners for all eternity. The Bishop Ranch thrived for over a century, passed down through the generations, each one adding their own chapters to the story while never forgetting the foundations laid by Wade and Penelope. They had started with nothing but hope and an advertisement in a newspaper, and they had built an empire of love that would endure long after they were gone. It was a story of courage in the face of adversity, of kindness meeting desperation, of 2 lonely people finding each other against all odds and creating something beautiful together. It was a story of love, pure and simple, the kind of love that inspires songs and poems and legends. And it all began on a hot July day in 1884, when a desperate young woman walked 40 miles barefoot through the Nevada desert to answer an advertisement. And a cowboy carried her inside and washed her feet with such tenderness that she knew, even then, that she had finally found home. Their love story became the bedrock upon which the entire Bishop family was built, a reminder to every generation that true love is worth any sacrifice, any hardship, any struggle. That sometimes the greatest blessings come from the most desperate circumstances. That courage and determination can change the course of a life, and that a simple act of kindness, like washing someone's bleeding feet, can be the beginning of a love that lasts forever. The town of Ely, Nevada, changed over the decades, growing and modernizing, but old-timers always remembered the story of Penelope Vaughn, who walked 40 miles to marry Wade Bishop. It became part of the town's history, a source of local pride, proof that their town had witnessed one of the greatest love stories ever told. In the Bishop family, every wedding included a reading about Wade and Penelope, reminding the new couple of what real commitment looked like. Every child learned about their ancestors' bravery and the importance of keeping promises. Every generation understood that they were the descendants of something special, something rare and precious. And on the ranch, now over 160 years old, and still going strong under the management of Penelope and Wade's great-great-great-grandchildren, there was a small memorial garden. In the center stood a statue of a man kneeling before a woman, washing her feet, with an inscription that read, "True love sees the person, not the circumstances. True love serves without expectation. True love endures forever. Wade and Penelope Bishop, 1884 forever." Visitors to the ranch would often stop at the memorial, reading the inscription and asking about the story behind it. And whoever was showing them around would smile and say, "Let me tell you about my ancestors, about how my great-great-great-grandmother walked 40 miles barefoot through the desert to answer an advertisement, and how my great-great-great-grandfather carried her inside and washed her feet." It is quite a story. And indeed it was. A story of love conquering all obstacles, of two souls meant to find each other, finding their way despite impossible odds, of a partnership that created a legacy lasting generations. It was a story that proved that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is take a chance on love. Walk 40 miles through the desert if that is what it takes, and trust that, at the end of the journey, someone will be waiting to catch you when you fall. Penelope and Wade's love story ended not with their deaths, but with their legacy, with every child born into the Bishop family, with every sunset watched from that porch, with every telling and retelling of how they found each other. Their love was immortal, living on in the hearts of all who heard their story and believed that true love was possible, that it was worth fighting for, worth walking 40 miles barefoot through the desert for. And in the end, that was the greatest testament to their love. Not the ranch they built, or the children they raised, or the years they spent together, though all of those things were important. The greatest testament was that their story inspired others to be brave, to take chances, to believe in love even when circumstances seemed hopeless. They proved that sometimes all it takes is one person willing to walk 40 miles and another willing to kneel down and wash their bleeding feet. And from that simple beginning, something extraordinary can grow. That was the story of Penelope and Wade Bishop, a love story set in the Wild West, a tale of courage and kindness and enduring love that would be told for generations to come, inspiring everyone who heard it to believe in the power of love to transform lives and create miracles. And somewhere in whatever comes after this life, Penelope and Wade were together still, sitting on a porch watching an eternal sunset, his arm around her shoulders, her head on his chest, both of them exactly where they always belonged together, forever in love.